And I would like to insult him on many ways that is not formal and would not suit my demeanor. This man is a danger to this country more now than he ever was. Why? Because previously this lunatic used to come up with utter rhetoric of violence, of revolution, talking about commanders-in-chief and spilling blood. Not only...
Guys, so the last EFF elective conference actually stepped on many toes of white South Africans. I even actually saw one of the popular white, what you would call a white South African on his blog actually made a video that, Julius Malema is calling for racial violence against whites. And I'll be making a series of videos on those anyway to really understand the mindset of the EFF in this period of its really difficult times with many of its members moving from the EFF to the MK and all that. But anyway, now the bear doesn't seem happy at all with the EFF, with Malema, and he's in this video is actually a vociferous one. He's really blasting Malema as a dictator. He's actually arguing that the EFF has no future, the EFF will die a slow death. And let's quickly listen to Neil the Bear, and I'll be back for an analysis.
Okay, Neil, back home, Julius Malema has been re-elected unopposed as the president of the Economic Freedom Fighters. What did you make of his emotional speech at the National People's Assembly?
Chris, that's like saying I'm surprised Idi Amin was elected. That Stalin rose again. Lenin is the president. Yeah. He's a dictator. He's a despot. He's a narcissist. He's a red jelly tot. That's what he is. And I would like to insult him on many ways that is not formal and would not suit my demeanor. This man is a danger to this country more now than he ever was. Why? Because previously this lunatic used to come up with utter rhetoric of violence, of revolution, talking about commanders-in-chief and spilling blood. Not only did he do that, he's still currently in a court case for walking onto a stage and firing off a fire. Now, if it was a blank, if it was a replica, if it was a real gun, this is not appropriate for a person that is a so-called parliamentarian. If I must tell you the amounts of times he has broken the code of ethics of Parliament, you could put it on a paper. The fact that the IEC, this dormant, biased so-called regulator, does not charge him for inciting violence, that the human rights don't take him up for the words he said at this conference is beyond me. State security should be at his door this morning. But because he is Julius Jellytot Malema, the people are scared of him. Now, what he said at this conference is for one purpose and one purpose only, to regain relevance, Chris. That's it. He wanted to make such a derogatory, violent, and revolutionary speech so that he could have one up on MK. This is it. This is the truth. This is the fact. Unopposed, another person hugely absent, Dr. Ndlozi, refusing to answer the questions at the media briefing afterwards. Another one, the spokesperson, also not there. All of the people basically in the top structure unopposed. This is a dictator. Now, solution. The EFF is going to die a slow, unannounced death from politics. Because I would like to say three things, Chris. I know him. I know him when he was the president of the Youth League at Luthuli House. I know him because, as the world probably by now, when he and his jelly tots came to Brackenfell, let me quickly tell you the nemesis of the EFF. Brackenfell in Cape Town is the Bermuda Triangle of the EFF. because I went there when his people wanted to storm that school. I stood there and he ran away. So that's number two. They're not very good in combat. And when the police unleashed on them, I think they left their buses and they ran for the waterfront. So when you speak about revolution, when you speak about violence and blood, jy ken dit nie. You don't know it. And thirdly, Chris, it's unacceptable because the majority, black and white, colored and Indian, in other words, South Africans, will not stand for it. I tell you this now. We will not stand that a group of people want to cause disruption, mayhem, and absolute violence. I'll tell you, he must count his word. He must be careful because this country, Chris, in conclusion, is more unified than what that jelly tot Malema thinks. I'm telling you, this country might be divided on many ways, but when pushed, when challenged, domestically or internationally, dan wil ek nou vir Julius sê in Afrikaans, ons sal jou moer. We will not allow you to destabilize this beautiful country. Law enforcement, defense force and intelligence, they know they have absolutely our support and we will have their back. So write him off, let him blah blah. He had his moment. The end is nigh.
Yeah, brilliant, guys. So I think it's a really difficult one, a difficult set of words and choice of words as well. But it speaks to the fact that, you know, this is where South Africa's politics actually finds itself. And actually, for me, coming from West Africa, that's one of the reasons why I enjoy South Africa politics so much, because it's really new. That's why I think many West Africans and North Africans do not really know South Africa. It's a really new approach that actually weaves, a political approach that weaves in race, class, multiculturalism, multiple ways of knowing and seeing the world, and it's really strange. So with Malema and the EFF now pushing for, and this is one thing I usually struggle when each of these parties speak of our people. That word, our people, for me is really strange because it appears that when the EFF speaks to our people, they're speaking to some group of people in South Africa. And I think there was one video he spoke about that, you know, his party is actually successful with the black middle class, you see. So when the EFF speaks of our people, are they speaking to this black middle class? Are they including Indians, coloreds, white in that phrase, our people? When the DA speaks about our people, who are they speaking about? Are they including black South Africans, Indian South Africans, coloreds in that mix? Or are they speaking specifically to the whites? This is actually a term that really confuses me a lot. But at the end of the day, I think South Africa needs a kind of leadership that actually, hopefully, can move and transcend beyond the pains of the past. I know it's really painful. The history of South Africa is a really traumatic one, really painful one. A lot of people have been hurt. Actually, I was going through a video yesterday of one really gruesome murder of I think her name was Maki Nkosana. She was actually murdered. She was a pregnant single mother who I think she was pregnant at the time, but she was accused of being a whistleblower, and during the period of pre-1994, and she was brutally murdered during the time when there was something called a necklacing. She was burned alive and all that. And so South Africa incubates a lot of trauma. And I remember the lady Botha, who was actually also stabbed multiple times in her neck by these two white South Africans. So it's not something that plagues just the blacks alone. It's also something, these two white South Africans stabbed this woman, I think 21 times on her neck. When she stood up, her neck was actually, she had to hold her head in place before she could find her. And she really made it alive, you see. So the nation is full of trauma. The guy recently who actually murdered his wife, murdered his son, his child, and then murdered himself. The other guy who actually stabbed his girlfriend because he actually argued that he had been used by her many times and he had been a money piggy bank, so to speak, and at the end of the day she decided to dump him, and he couldn't have that, but he had to murder her and then murder himself. So it's a nation of trauma. There's a trauma, a really wounded soul, in the nation of South Africa. And so I really understand how that whole divide can actually breed the likes of, this kind of racist tones from the EFF, this kind of racist response, angry response from Nel the Bear, so to speak, and all of that. But at the end of the day, I think South Africa needs a kind of leader that can see beyond that. President Ramaphosa has tried his best. One of the things I really enjoy about his leadership, I know he's been criticized a lot by you, and I see a lot of your comments on his weakness and how weak he is. He's not been able to really help push policies that actually strengthen all parts of South Africa. He has actually been, in the words of Prince Mashele, actually seeing the defeat or the demise of the black majority, and that's causing opening the door to a more radicalization of black communities, increasing crime because of the increasing poverty and all that, you see. So this whole thing works in a cycle, in a loop, and there's a need for a leader that really understands the need to transcend beyond the traumas and the pains that South Africa as a nation incubates, and actually helps each of the people group grow in their respectable ways. The solution at the end of the day is the economic one. South Africa would have to become a productive industrial engine that can actually be productive. It has all the talent. South Africa has a lot of talents. Business, the guys, South Africans are there in sports, South Africans are there in education, South African in academia, South Africans are there. The minds, really excellent minds in South Africa. So there's a need for the kind of leadership to transcend the pains of the past and really help. But I don't know how difficult it is, because it's really difficult to forgive, the past, so to speak. And so at the end of the day, I don't know how long we'll keep seeing these back and forth voices in South Africa that still remind the nation of the pains of the past, and how that struggle continues to evolve over time. But anyway, at the end of the day, we'll keep on watching and reporting and actually hoping for the best for this powerful nation of South Africa. But I don't know, what do you guys think about Nelly Bear's speech here? Share your thoughts in the comments.